We are so glad to be joined here on Sox TV by Larry Lester, the co-founder of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and accomplished author. Larry, how are you?
Doing well, Jason. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for being here. Look, Sox fans, I don't think know that there's so much history of the Negro Leagues right under their noses in terms of our area around the ballpark. And I guess let's start with old Comiskey and the All-Star game that used to be held there. When I found that out, I was shocked that I hadn't known it. A couple of years ago, we were at the museum in Kansas City, and I was like, how did I not know that? But it's a major historical site, right?
Yes, it is. In 1933, the East-West game started there at Comiskey Park, and it perhaps became the biggest event in Black America attendance-wise. It was the start of a mega event. The best ball players in the Negro Leagues were at that game, and people came from all across the country by railroad and cars and stayed at the Grand Hotel on Grand Avenue, and just a fantastic game.
How did it come to be that game was in Chicago every year?
The game started in Chicago because of Andrew Rube Foster's presence there with the Chicago American Giants. The originator of the game was Gus Greenlee, owner of the Pittsburgh Crawfords out of Pittsburgh. And he thought it would be a great idea to have the game in a central location like Chicago because of the railroads that came through Chicago in the Midwest. It was right after the Great Depression as we were making this recovery. And he felt like it was the perfect time to have a ball game of All-Stars, the same year that Major League Baseball started its All-Star game in 1933. So the country was ready for a renewal interest in sports, and baseball was, of course, the national pastime.
You mentioned the atmosphere. What was the atmosphere like at those games in your understanding of it?
Wow. It was a mega event. All the celebrities from Lena Horne and her father, Teddy Horne, Louis Armstrong and Count Basie and Joe Louis, the biggest name in boxing history, were all there. All the great entertainers came to Comiskey Park, the south side of Chicago, to see the best ball players in the world play. Fantastic affair. If you were anybody, you were there.
Larry, you mentioned the Chicago American Giants who played at 39th and Wentworth. I don't know that a lot of people know that either. What's the history of that ballpark and that location?
39th and Wentworth is better known as the Southside Park, home of the Leland Giants. Today, I think the Wentworth apartments are on that site. But the Leland Giants were the precursor to the Chicago American Giants, originally founded by Frank Leland, and he lost ownership of the team and the name to Rube Foster in around 1910. But a lot of great history there. Frank Leland was an incredible genius in getting Black baseball on the map in Chicago. And then Rube Foster took it from there to a next level, to a much higher level. And as you know, created the first Black league to survive a full season in 1920.
You mentioned Leland doing everything it took. What did it take to get Black baseball on the map in Chicago?
Leland put together a team of quality ball players. One of them was John Henry Pop Lloyd, great shortstop that Babe Ruth said was the greatest ball player he had ever seen. And you got Bowman at catcher and Pete Hill and an outfielder who is now in the Hall of Fame. And of course, he had Rube Foster on his earlier teams. A lot of outstanding talent that could not be ignored. And so the Leland Giants were one of the best top independent teams in the country at the time, along with the Indianapolis ABCs, the Philadelphia Giants, and others.
How did the leagues work? You're talking about independent teams. How did it work? Who played who?
Well, they would just travel around the country and find a ballpark, rent a ballpark, and play maybe a 3 to 5 game series. And the booking agent or the owner or secretary would call in advance with another team owner and try to book another series of 3 to 5 games. They typically played 5-game series because once they got to a location, they wanted to maximize that opportunity and reduce their travel costs.
When we went to the museum for the first time, I hadn't been there until 2017, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this whole new world had opened up to me of baseball that I wasn't aware of. And for people who are watching this, what's the best way to start getting acquainted with Negro Leagues baseball? Because there's just so much there. How do you start? What would you say?
Well, first of all, you could start with the players in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, get to know the 35 members, backtrack their careers and find out where they started and how they made an impact in the change and evolution of the baseball. We have to realize that the Negro Leagues, they had to be more creative and innovative in that the game was more up-tempo. They had to hit and run, the bunt and run, double steals, suicide squeeze plays. But today they call it small ball. But in the Negro Leagues, they could score a run without getting a hit. In the process, the Negro League players made baseball a better version of itself. And that's why they have a place in American baseball history. So that's the beauty of understanding Negro League baseball. Also, that the Negro Leagues had uniform numbers before the Yankees and the Indians did in 1927. They had batting helmets in the late 30s before the Brooklyn Dodgers had them in 1941. They had Ladies' Day in the early 1920s. This was to cut down on profanity by men in the ballpark. So they invited the ladies in for free and doubled their attendance. And the ladies caught the sporting fever. So the Negro Leagues had to be a little bit more creative. And, during the Depression in 1930, they started night baseball. This was 5 years before they had night baseball in Cincinnati's Crosby Field. The Negro Leagues had to be more imaginative and had to come up with more marketing ideas to have to create more fan interest. They were unique in that.
Yeah, clearly. What jersey do you have on, by the way?
This is a East-West jersey given to me by the Chicago White Sox when I did a presentation there many years ago.
That's fantastic. I wish I could have been at one of those All-Star games because, my gosh, like the stories I've heard about them.
I do too. I wish I could have been there. It was a party within a party. It's probably the greatest event in Black America, with maybe the exception of a Joe Louis broadcast fight. But it was outstanding. I mean, you look at the attendance in the 40s and the 50s, where over 40,000 people were coming to the ballpark. And in two cases, I think 41 and 43, they had over 50,000 people attend. And in fact, in 1945, during the World War II, Major League Baseball did not have an All-Star game, but the Negro Leagues did, and they drew more than 33,000.
Is that right?
Yes, the Negro Leagues did not stop. They had such a great fan interest. Both Black and white fans loved seeing this up-tempo style of play. And the war did not keep them from putting on a game in 1945.
How about that? I don't think many people know that. And I want to ask you this, and you certainly don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I'm interested in your opinion on this. What can Major League Baseball do to help allow people of different colors and types and backgrounds and encourage that to happen more?
Well, first of all, we need to market the Negro Leagues brand more often. I have suggested to several clubs, like the Kansas City Royals, why don't we fly the championship flags of the 1924 and the 1942 Kansas City Monarchs? Why not in Philly or Pittsburgh? Why not in Pittsburgh fly the championship flag of the 1935 Pittsburgh Crawfords? In Chicago, they won the World Series in 1925 and 1926. This is low maintenance marketing. You pull those flags up raise them up on the flagpole, and people say, well, what do those flags represent? 1925 and 26. Well, let me tell you about it. Chicago American Giants won the Negro World Series, beating the Bacharach Giants in 1925 and 26. And if you want to know more, visit our gift shop or the local museum around the corner. It's low maintenance, real easy to increase interest or maybe prompt interest in the Black Leagues. To ignore the Negro Leagues is like one hand clapping. It's so easy to ignore their contributions, but they made a tremendous impact on the game. Just think, would baseball be baseball without Willie Mays, who started his career with the Birmingham Blackburns, or Ernie Banks from the Kansas City Monarchs, or Hank Aaron from the Indianapolis Clowns, or Larry Doby and Monty Irvin with the Newark Eagles, or Roy Campanella, who spent 8 years with the Baltimore Elite Giants before breaking in with the Brooklyn Dodgers. I mean, all these men are in the Hall of Fame. And we would have missed out on this opportunity if they still had apartheid baseball. So baseball is a better version of itself because of the impact of more than 75 men from the Negro Leagues who migrated into white baseball in the late 40s and early 50s. So that's why I love baseball.
And there's always something to learn. I mean, beyond those players, and yeah, some people might say, well, I don't want to go back and read and do all that. But I got to tell you, I mean, you bring any kid into that museum and you go to the last room with all the jerseys up there.
Yes.
Those are some sweet jerseys. We need to have those jerseys in our lives more.
Well, I agree. I think Major League Baseball is doing a great job with Turn Back the Clock games where they showcase jerseys from Negro League teams. And based on some of my limited research, some of the biggest attended days that year is when they have Negro League Turn Back the Clock Day. So fans are interested in creating history. I mean, baseball has that unique ability of nostalgia and embracing nostalgia. So only baseball can really do that. Baseball has that rich history, more so than football and basketball and other sports. And that's the beauty of our American pastime.
Larry, it's an absolute treat to get to talk to you. We will let you go, but thank you for spending the time with us and for talking about the history of Chicago and the Negro Leagues in general.
Well, thank you, Jason.